In the heart of a busy city, where skyscrapers touched the clouds and people rushed through crowded streets, there was a small but promising office building. This wasn't just any office. It was home to Brighton Solutions, a tech company that had been making waves in the industry. What most employees didn't know, however, was that this seemingly ordinary workplace held an extraordinary secret. The man behind it all sat quietly at his desk on the fourth floor. His name, or rather his fake name, was Evan Reed. To his co-workers, he was just another mid-level manager trying to climb the corporate ladder. But what they didn't realize was that Evan wasn't who he appeared to be. In reality, he was Alex Carter, the silent owner of the entire company. Alex hadn't always planned to live a double life. After inheriting his father's business empire, he could have easily taken over as CEO, basking in the glory of being the boss. But something about that idea felt hollow to him. He wanted more than titles and power. He craved understanding. How did regular employees think? What were their struggles? What made them tick? So, instead of announcing himself as the owner, Alex decided to do something unconventional. He created a new identity for himself, Evan Reed, and joined his own company as a manager. It wasn't easy keeping up the charade. Every day he had to act like everyone else, clocking in and out, attending meetings, and dealing with deadlines. But it gave him a front-row seat to the inner workings of his company, allowing him to see things from a perspective no other CEO ever could. At first, everything went smoothly. As Evan, Alex became well-liked by his colleagues. He was hardworking, approachable, and genuinely interested in helping others succeed. People admired his dedication and often turned to him for advice. Behind closed doors, though, Alex still pulled the strings as the owner. He approved budgets, signed off on major decisions, and guided the company's growth, all without anyone suspecting a thing. Life might have continued this way indefinitely, if not for one fateful incident that would change everything. One morning, chaos erupted in the office. A routine audit uncovered a shocking discovery. $50,000 was missing from the accounts payable department. The news spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through the company. Everyone started pointing fingers, searching for someone to blame. Suspicion quickly landed on Evan. His access logs showed that he'd been interacting with financial records late at night when no one else was around. While these actions seemed suspicious, they weren't what they appeared to be. Evan or Alex had simply been reviewing reports to better understand the company's operations. But in the eyes of management, the evidence painted a damning picture. Before long, Evan was called into a private meeting with the CEO. Sitting across from him was a stern-faced executive, a figurehead Alex himself had appointed years ago. The CEO wasted no time getting to the point. "We've reviewed the findings," he said coldly, sliding a folder across the table. "It looks like you've been stealing from the company." Evan's mind raced. He wanted to explain, to tell the truth about who he really was. But revealing his secret now would only make things worse. Instead, he stayed silent, absorbing the accusations like a punch to the gut. Within minutes, he was handed a termination letter and escorted out of the building. As he packed up his belongings under the watchful eyes of security, Evan couldn't help but notice the whispers around him. Some co-workers looked at him with pity, while others glared accusingly. No one came forward to defend him. By the time he walked out of the office for the last time, his reputation was in tatters. But here's the twist. Despite losing his job, Alex still owned the company. And deep down, he knew this wasn't the end of the story. If anything, it was the beginning of something much bigger, a chance to uncover the truth, reclaim his honor, and prove that sometimes, even the person holding all the cards can find themselves playing from behind. Little did anyone know the real drama was yet to unfold. After being fired, Alex stepped out of the office building feeling like a stranger in his own life. The weight of the accusations hung over him like a dark cloud. He had spent months working alongside people he respected, earning their trust, and now, in the blink of an eye, it was all gone. They thought he was a thief, a liar, It stung more than he cared to admit. Walking through the busy streets, Alex replayed the events in his mind. How could this happen? Why did the evidence point so clearly to him? He knew he hadn't done anything wrong, but proving his innocence wouldn't be easy. Not only was he framed for something he didn't do, but revealing the truth about his identity as the owner would only complicate things further. For now, he decided to keep quiet and figure out what was really going on behind the scenes. The next few days were tough. Alex couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. He had poured his heart into Brighton Solutions, not just as its owner, but also as an employee who genuinely cared about the company and its people. Now those same people doubted him without giving him a chance to explain. Some even avoided him when he tried reaching out, assuming he was guilty simply because of the rumors swirling around. Determined to clear his name, Alex reached out to HR, asking for details about the investigation. But every attempt hit a dead end. No one wanted to talk to him. Emails went unanswered and phone calls were ignored. It seemed the company was eager to move past the scandal quickly, sweeping everything under the rug once they had their scapegoat. To them, Evan Reed, the mid-level manager, was already yesterday's news, but inside the office things weren't much better. Without Evan around, the atmosphere grew tense. Employees whispered among themselves, speculating about what had really happened. Some believed Evan must have been guilty. After all, why else would he have been fired? Others weren't so sure. Something doesn't add up, one colleague muttered during lunch. Evan always seemed honest. I can't imagine him stealing. Rumors spread faster than wildfire, dividing the team. Trust eroded between co-workers, and productivity plummeted. Projects stalled, meetings turned into blame games, and morale sank lower with each passing day. The irony wasn't lost on Alex. As the owner, he had worked hard to create a positive work environment where employees felt valued and supported. Yet now, thanks to this mess, the very foundation of that culture was crumbling. Watching from afar hurt more than Alex expected. He saw how the accusations against him affected not just his reputation, but also the lives of others. A young intern stopped showing up because she felt too uncomfortable facing her colleagues. An older employee nearing retirement confided in a friend that he feared losing his job if the company kept spiraling downward. Even the usually upbeat receptionist seemed quieter, her smile fading whenever someone mentioned the scandal. For Alex, this wasn't just about clearing his name anymore. It was about fixing what had broken. He realized that stepping back into his role as the owner wouldn't solve everything. It might even make matters worse. People needed answers, not just another authority figure telling them what to think. So Alex made a decision. He would dig deeper into the case himself, uncovering the truth no matter how long it took. Using his resources carefully, Alex hired an external forensic accountant to review the financial records independently. He instructed the accountant to focus on finding inconsistencies or patterns that might reveal who was truly responsible for the missing money. At the same time, Alex began piecing together clues from his own experience at the company. Who stood to gain from framing him? Who had access to the systems involved? And most importantly, why? As the investigation progressed, Alex found himself reflecting on his journey as both Evan and the owner. He had started this experiment to understand his employees better, to see the world through their eyes. But instead, he ended up learning something far more valuable. Leadership isn't just about making decisions from the top. It's about listening, empathizing, and standing by your team when times get tough. Despite the challenges ahead, Alex refused to give up. He owed it to himself and to the people who had trusted him to find out the truth. Deep down, he hoped that exposing the real culprit would not only restore his honor, but also bring the company back together again. After all, Brighton Solutions wasn't just a business, it was a community. And communities thrive when trust is restored. Though the road ahead looked uncertain, Alex felt a spark of determination ignite within him. This wasn't the end of his story. It was merely the beginning of a fight for justice, redemption, and renewal. Little did anyone know the real battle was just getting started. The days turned into weeks, and Alex threw himself into uncovering the truth with a quiet intensity. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone inside the company was pulling strings, someone who knew exactly how to frame him. But finding proof wasn't easy. Every lead he followed seemed to hit a dead end, leaving him frustrated and restless. Alex spent hours poring over the forensic accountant's preliminary reports, searching for anything unusual in the financial records. The numbers told a confusing story. At first glance, everything appeared normal. Invoices matched payments, budgets balanced out, and expenses were accounted for. But when Alex dug deeper, he noticed subtle anomalies, small transactions here and there that didn't quite fit. Someone had been clever, covering their tracks by spreading the stolen money across multiple accounts. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack, except the needle had been painted to blend in perfectly. While Alex worked behind the scenes, the chaos at Brighton Solutions continued to escalate. Morale among employees reached an all-time low. People stopped collaborating as freely as they used to, fearing that trusting the wrong person could cost them their jobs, or worse, get them accused of something they didn't do. Conversations around the water cooler became tense, filled with suspicion and second-guessing. Even longtime friends avoided eye contact, unsure of where anyone's loyalties lay. One afternoon, Alex decided to visit a nearby cafe, a place where many of his former co-workers often gathered after work. Sitting at a corner table, he listened carefully to snippets of conversations. Some talked about how much they missed Evan, saying things like, "He was always fair," or "I never thought he'd do something like this." Others expressed anger, convinced that Evan's firing hadn't gone far enough. "They should have called the police," one man muttered loudly, slamming his coffee cup on the table. Stealing is stealing. Hearing these words cut deep, but Alex forced himself to stay focused. He reminded himself that emotions were running high because people felt betrayed, not just by Evan, but by the system itself. If he wanted to fix this mess, he needed to address the root cause of the problem. That meant not only proving his innocence, but also exposing whoever was truly responsible for the theft. As the forensic accountant's investigation progressed, patterns began to emerge. One name kept showing up repeatedly: the CFO. On paper, the CFO seemed untouchable, a seasoned professional known for his sharp mind and meticulous attention to detail. Everyone trusted him implicitly, assuming he was above reproach. But the more Alex looked into his activities, the more red flags appeared. Late-night transfers, unauthorized adjustments to ledgers, and suspiciously timed vacations all pointed to one conclusion. The CFO wasn't just involved, he was orchestrating the entire scheme. Realizing this, Alex felt a mix of anger and disbelief. How could someone so high up betray the company like this? More importantly, why hadn't anyone noticed sooner? It dawned on him that perhaps this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Maybe the CFO had been siphoning funds for months or even years without raising any alarms. And if that was true, then Alex's decision to step back as owner might have inadvertently allowed this behavior to fester unchecked. Determined to put a stop to it, Alex started gathering evidence. He instructed the forensic accountant to focus specifically on the CFO's transactions, cross-referencing them with internal communications and external bank records. Slowly but surely, the pieces of the puzzle came together. What emerged was a damning trail of deceit: forged documents, falsified reports, and elaborate shell companies designed to launder the stolen money. With concrete proof finally in hand, Alex faced a difficult choice. He could reveal the truth immediately, clearing his name and bringing the CFO to justice. But doing so would mean stepping out of the shadows and admitting that he, the real owner of the company, had been working undercover as Evan all along. Would his employees forgive him for hiding such a big secret? Or would they feel betrayed all over again? On the other hand, staying silent wasn't an option either. The longer the CFO remained in power, the more damage he could inflict, not just financially, but emotionally. Employees deserved to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. For Alex, this wasn't just about vindication anymore. It was about accountability, transparency, and rebuilding trust from the ground up. Late one night, sitting alone in his apartment, Alex made his decision. He drafted a detailed report outlining everything he had uncovered, attaching copies of the forensic accountant's findings as backup. Then he sent an encrypted email to the board of directors requesting an emergency meeting. In the subject line, he wrote 3 words: "The truth about Brighton Solutions." When the reply came confirming the meeting, Alex felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with dread. He knew what lay ahead wouldn't be easy. Revealing the truth meant opening himself up to judgment, criticism, and possibly even ridicule. But it also meant taking responsibility for his actions, for the company's failures, and for the future of everyone involved. As he prepared for the meeting, Alex reflected on everything he had learned during his time as Evan. He thought about the late nights spent reviewing projects, the early mornings rushing to meet deadlines, and the countless conversations with colleagues who had become more than just co-workers. They had become friends. Despite the challenges, those experiences had shaped him in ways he never expected. They had taught him humility, patience, and the importance of leading not from a position of authority, but from a place of understanding. Walking into the boardroom. The next day, Alex carried 2 things with him: a folder filled with evidence and a resolve stronger than ever before. This was his chance to set things right, not just for himself, but for the company and its people. Whatever happened next, he was ready to face it head on. Because sometimes redemption isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about owning them and using them to build something better. The day of the emergency board meeting arrived, and Alex felt a mix of nerves and determination as he stepped into the conference room. The space was filled with tension. Board members sat stiffly in their chairs, exchanging wary glances. Some flipped through papers, while others tapped impatiently on their laptops. No one knew why they had been summoned so suddenly, but the tone of Alex's email suggested it was serious. Alex took a deep breath before speaking. He began by laying out the facts, presenting the forensic accountant's findings piece by piece. With each slide he showed on the projector, the room grew quieter. Bank statements, transaction logs, and forged documents painted a clear picture. The CFO, the person entrusted to manage the company's finances, had been embezzling money for months. It wasn't just sloppy accounting or an honest mistake. It was a calculated scheme designed to line his own pockets at the expense of the company. As the evidence mounted, gasps rippled through the room. Board members leaned forward, their faces pale with shock. One woman whispered, "How could we not see this?" Another man muttered under his breath, "Unbelievable." For years they had relied on the CFO's expertise, never questioning his decisions. Now it seemed his reputation had been nothing more than a carefully crafted facade. But Alex wasn't done yet. After exposing the CFO's crimes, he dropped the second bombshell, the one that would change everything. Standing tall, he looked each board member in the eye and said, "There's something else you need to know. I'm not just here as a concerned employee. I'm Alex Carter, the owner of Brighton Solutions." The room erupted in chaos. Chairs scraped against the floor as people stood up, shouting questions all at once. "What do you mean, the owner? Why didn't you tell us sooner? Is this some kind of joke?" Alex raised his hands, signaling for calm. When the noise finally subsided, he explained his decision to work undercover as Evan Reed. His voice was steady, though tinged with emotion. "I wanted to understand how my employees think," he said. "I wanted to experience what it's like to be part of the team, not just as the boss looking down from above, but as someone working alongside everyone else. I never imagined I'd end up being accused of theft. But even then, I stayed silent, because I thought revealing my identity would only make things worse. Today I'm here to set the record straight, for me, for the company, and for all of you." For a moment there was silence. Then, slowly, the board members began processing what they had just heard. Some looked angry, feeling betrayed by Alex's secrecy. Others appeared thoughtful, realizing the weight of the situation. One older member spoke up, his voice measured. "This is unexpected, but if what you're saying is true, and the evidence certainly supports it, then we owe it to the company to act immediately." With the board's approval, Alex moved quickly. The CFO was placed on administrative leave pending further investigation, and legal action was initiated to recover the stolen funds. Meanwhile, Alex worked with the board to implement sweeping changes within the company. They decided to restructure upper management, bringing in fresh leadership who prioritized transparency and accountability. Internal controls were tightened, ensuring that no single individual could manipulate the system again. While these steps helped stabilize Brighton Solutions, Alex knew the real challenge lay ahead: rebuilding trust with his employees. Revealing his true identity had been necessary, but it came with risks. Would his staff forgive him for keeping such a huge secret? Or would they feel deceived, wondering if anything he had done as Evan was genuine? To address these concerns, Alex held a series of town hall meetings. These weren't formal presentations where he dictated terms. They were open forums where employees could ask questions, share frustrations, and express their feelings. At first, many were hesitant, unsure whether they could trust him. But as Alex listened patiently, responding honestly to every concern, the atmosphere began to shift. One employee raised her hand and asked, "Why didn't you tell us sooner? We trusted you as Evan, but now it feels like everything was a lie." Alex nodded, acknowledging the pain in her words. "You're right," he admitted. "I kept my identity hidden because I thought it would help me understand your perspective better. But I realize now that secrecy has its costs. I should have trusted you enough to be honest about who I am. For that, I'm truly sorry." Another employee chimed in, his tone skeptical. "So what happens next? Are you going to go back to being the invisible owner, or are you actually going to stick around this time?" Alex smiled faintly, appreciating the bluntness of the question. "I'll still be involved," he replied. "But not in the way I was before. This experience has shown me that leadership isn't about hiding behind titles. It's about showing up, listening, and making tough decisions when they matter most. From now on, I want to lead differently, not just as the owner, but as someone who genuinely cares about this company and its people." Over time, these conversations started to heal old wounds. Employees began opening up, sharing stories about how the scandal had affected them personally. Some admitted they had doubted Evan's innocence, while others confessed they had suspected foul play but were too afraid to speak up. Through it all, Alex listened without judgment, letting them vent their frustrations and fears. He also made tangible changes to improve workplace culture. Anonymous feedback channels were introduced, allowing employees to report issues without fear of retaliation. Regular check-ins became mandatory for managers, ensuring that no one felt isolated or unsupported. And perhaps most importantly, Alex encouraged open dialogue at every level of the organization, fostering an environment where honesty was valued over hierarchy. Despite these efforts, not everyone warmed up to him right away. Some employees remained distant, struggling to reconcile the man they knew as Evan with the powerful owner standing before them. Alex understood their hesitation and gave them space, knowing that trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight. Still, he remained hopeful. Every small step toward healing mattered, and he was determined to see the process through. As weeks turned into months, the transformation at Brighton Solutions became undeniable. Productivity increased, morale improved, and collaboration flourished. Employees who had once avoided each other now worked side by side, united by a renewed sense of purpose. Even those who had initially resisted Alex's leadership began to soften, recognizing the sincerity of his intentions. Looking back, Alex realized that this ordeal had taught him invaluable lessons, not just about running a business, but about human nature. He had entered the company hoping to learn from his employees, but in the end, they had taught him far more than he ever expected. They had shown him the importance of vulnerability, the power of empathy, and the resilience of a community willing to rebuild itself after betrayal. Though scars lingered, Brighton Solutions emerged stronger than ever, a testament to the idea that even in the darkest moments, redemption is possible. And for Alex, this journey wasn't just about reclaiming his honor. It was about proving that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories. Months had passed since the explosive revelations at Brighton Solutions, and life inside the company began to settle into a new rhythm. The scandal that once divided coworkers was slowly fading into memory, replaced by a cautious optimism about the future. But for Alex, the journey wasn't over yet. While he had taken steps to rebuild trust and restore stability, he knew that true healing required more than just policy changes or heartfelt apologies. It demanded action. One of the first things Alex did after clearing his name was step away from the day-to-day operations of the company. He realized that staying in the spotlight as both Evan and the owner might do more harm than good. Instead, he appointed a trusted ally, a seasoned professional with a reputation for fairness and integrity, as the new CEO. This decision came as a surprise to many employees, who assumed Alex would want to reclaim his position fully. But Alex saw it differently. To him, leadership wasn't about holding on to power. It was about empowering others to lead. The new CEO wasted no time making her mark. She introduced initiatives aimed at fostering transparency and collaboration, ensuring that everyone felt heard and valued. Weekly team meetings became a platform for open discussions, where employees could voice concerns without fear of judgment. Anonymous suggestion boxes were placed throughout the office, encouraging honest feedback. These small but meaningful gestures helped bridge the gap between management and staff, creating an atmosphere of mutual respect. But Alex didn't disappear completely. Though he took a backseat in daily operations, he remained actively involved in mentoring young professionals within the company. He often pulled aside promising employees, sharing insights from his unique experience as both a worker and an owner. Leadership isn't about titles, he would tell them during these informal chats. It's about understanding people, what motivates them, what scares them, and how you can help them grow. These conversations resonated deeply with his mentees. Many of them had entered the workforce expecting corporate life to be cold and impersonal, only to find themselves inspired by Alex's approachable demeanor and genuine care. One young intern fresh out of college confided in him during a mentoring session. "I used to think climbing the ladder meant stepping on others to get ahead," she admitted. "But seeing how you handled everything, it made me realize there's another way." Alex smiled, nodding thoughtfully. "Success isn't worth much if you lose yourself along the way," he replied. "Always remember, your actions define you more than your achievements ever will." As word spread about Alex's commitment to mentorship, more employees sought him out for guidance. Some came with questions about career growth, while others simply wanted advice on navigating workplace challenges. Regardless of the topic, Alex listened attentively, offering practical solutions rooted in empathy and experience. Over time, these interactions transformed him from a distant figurehead into a relatable human being, one who understood the struggles of everyday workers because he had lived them himself. Outside the office, Alex continued working to repair his reputation beyond Brighton Solutions. He reached out to former colleagues who had doubted his innocence, inviting them for coffee or lunch to clear the air. These meetings weren't easy. Some conversations were awkward, filled with lingering tension, but Alex approached each one with humility and sincerity. "I know I let you down by keeping my identity hidden," he told one former coworker during a quiet cafe meeting, "and I won't make excuses for that. All I can do now is try to make things right." The coworker hesitated before responding, his expression softening. "It's not going to happen overnight," he said finally. "But I appreciate you reaching out. That means something." These small acts of reconciliation added up, gradually mending relationships Alex had feared were beyond repair. Each apology accepted, each handshake exchanged, brought him closer to regaining the trust he had lost. It was slow, painstaking work, but Alex knew it was necessary. In addition to rebuilding connections, Alex also turned his attention outward, using his story as a lesson for aspiring entrepreneurs. He began speaking at local business forums, sharing the highs and lows of his journey in hopes of inspiring others. His talks weren't polished presentations filled with jargon. They were raw, honest reflections on failure, resilience, and the importance of staying grounded. During one such event, a young entrepreneur approached him afterward, visibly moved. "I've been struggling with imposter syndrome," the man confessed. "Hearing you talk about your doubts and mistakes makes me feel like maybe I'm not alone." Alex nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "We all face moments of doubt, he said. "The key is to keep moving forward, even when it feels like the odds are against you, and don't be afraid to lean on others for support. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to help if you just ask." Through his speeches and mentoring efforts, Alex discovered a renewed sense of purpose. What started as a personal quest for redemption evolved into a mission to uplift others. He found joy in helping people navigate their own challenges, knowing firsthand how isolating those struggles could feel. In doing so, he transformed his painful past into a source of strength, not just for himself, but for those around him. Back at Brighton Solutions, the changes Alex had set in motion continued to bear fruit. Employee satisfaction surveys showed marked improvements, with respondents praising the company's newfound emphasis on transparency and inclusivity. Productivity soared as teams worked together seamlessly, driven by a shared sense of pride in what they had overcome. Even longtime skeptics admitted that the company felt different now, better, stronger, more united. For Alex, watching this transformation unfold was both humbling and rewarding. He had entered the company hoping to understand his employees, but in the end they had taught him far more than he ever expected. They had shown him the resilience of the human spirit, the power of forgiveness, and the beauty of rebuilding something broken into something beautiful. Those scars lingered, the kind that never fully fade. Alex embraced them as reminders of how far he and the company had come. Redemption, he realized, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about learning from it and using those lessons to create a brighter future. And as he looked around at the thriving community he had helped build, he couldn't help but feel grateful for the challenges that shaped him, the people who stood by him, and the endless possibilities still waiting to unfold. As time went on, Brighton Solutions became a company unrecognizable from the one Alex had first stepped into as Evan. The scandal that once tore it apart now served as a turning point, a moment of reckoning that forced everyone to confront their weaknesses and grow stronger together. But this transformation didn't happen overnight. It was built brick by brick, through countless small actions that added up to something extraordinary. One of the most noticeable changes was in the way employees interacted with each other. Gone were the days of whispered accusations and guarded conversations. In their place was a culture of openness where people felt safe sharing ideas, asking for help, or admitting when they made mistakes. This shift wasn't just about policies or procedures, it was about trust. And trust, Alex learned, was earned not through grand gestures but through consistent effort over time. To reinforce this new mindset, the company introduced team-building activities designed to bring people closer together. Monthly workshops focused on communication skills, conflict resolution, and collaboration became a regular part of the schedule. At first, some employees groaned at the thought of yet another meeting, but soon they found themselves looking forward to these sessions. They weren't lectures. They were interactive discussions where everyone's voice mattered. Even skeptics began participating enthusiastically, realizing that these exercises weren't just corporate fluff. They were tools for personal growth. Outside of work, friendships blossomed among colleagues who had once barely spoken to each other. Lunch breaks turned into lively debates about books, movies, and weekend plans. Office parties, which used to feel awkward and forced, now brimmed with laughter and genuine connection. One evening, during a casual get-together at a nearby pub, an employee raised a toast to second chances and to proving that we're stronger than anyone gives us credit for. The room erupted in cheers, and for the first time in months, no one felt the need to glance over their shoulder or question someone else's intentions. For Alex, seeing this renewed camaraderie filled him with pride. He often wandered through the office, observing the buzz of activity around him. Teams huddled around whiteboards, brainstorming solutions to complex problems. Managers sat side by side with junior staff, offering guidance without judgment. Even the receptionist seemed happier, greeting visitors with a warmth that hadn't been there before. Every corner of the workplace radiated energy, creativity, and purpose. But Alex knew better than anyone that success wasn't permanent. Just because things were going well now didn't mean they always would. To ensure Brighton Solutions remained resilient, he worked closely with the new CEO to establish long-term strategies for sustainability. They implemented quarterly reviews to track progress, identify areas for improvement, and celebrate milestones along the way. These check-ins weren't just about numbers. They were opportunities to reflect on how far the company had come and set goals for where it wanted to go next. Alex also made sure to prioritize mental health and well-being within the organization. After everything his employees had endured, he understood the importance of creating a supportive environment where people could thrive both personally and professionally. Flexible work hours, wellness programs, and access to counseling services became standard offerings. Employees appreciated these initiatives, recognizing that their employer cared about them as individuals, not just as cogs in a machine. Despite stepping back from day-to-day operations, Alex stayed connected to the company in meaningful ways. He continued mentoring young professionals, helping them navigate challenges and seize opportunities. Many of his mentees went on to take on leadership roles themselves, carrying forward the values Alex had instilled in them. Watching them succeed filled him with a sense of fulfillment that surpassed anything he had experienced as the owner. His influence extended beyond Brighton Solutions too. Through speaking engagements and community outreach, Alex shared his story with audiences across industries. His talks weren't polished speeches delivered from a stage. They were heartfelt conversations held in intimate settings. People listened intently, nodding along as he recounted his struggles, failures, and eventual triumphs. Often, attendees approached him afterward, thanking him for his honesty and vulnerability. "It's rare to hear someone talk so openly about their mistakes," one listener told him after a session. "Most leaders try to act like they have it all figured out. You remind us that it's okay not to." Alex smiled, appreciating the sentiment. "We're all learning as we go," he replied. "The key is to keep moving forward, even when it feels like you're stumbling." Though his journey had been challenging, Alex wouldn't trade it for anything. The lessons he had learned about humility, empathy, and resilience had shaped him into a better leader and a better person. He realized now that owning a company wasn't about wielding power. It was about serving others and leaving behind a legacy worth remembering. Years later, when asked what advice he would give to aspiring entrepreneurs, Alex kept his answer simple: "Don't be afraid to fail. Failure isn't the end. It's the beginning of something greater. Embrace it, learn from it, and use it to build something meaningful." By the time Brighton Solutions celebrated its 10th anniversary, the company had grown into a shining example of what teamwork, transparency, and trust could achieve. Revenue soared. Client satisfaction ratings hit record highs and employee retention rates improved dramatically. Awards lined the walls of the office, but none of them meant as much as the smiles on people's faces every day. For Alex, the true measure of success wasn't trophies or titles. It was knowing that he had played a part in creating a place where people felt valued, supported, and inspired to do their best work. As he stood at the back of the room during the anniversary celebration, watching his former coworkers laugh and cheer, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had started this journey hoping to understand his employees, but in the end, they had taught him far more than he ever expected. They had shown him the strength of unity, the power of forgiveness, and the beauty of rebuilding something broken into something beautiful. And though scars lingered, the kind that never fully fade, they served as reminders of how far they had come. Redemption, Alex realized, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about embracing it and using those lessons to create a brighter future. As he looked around at the thriving community he had helped build, he couldn't help but smile. For all its ups and downs, this was a story worth telling, one rooted in humanity, resilience, and hope.